What we really wanted to do, you know how everybody's talking about opening up games, widening the demographics, getting more mass appeal, right? And so that's what everybody wants to do with video games. And to me, the two things that you have to do, if you want to get people like me to play the game, and if you want to take it out of the hardcore gamer and really open it up, you have to do two things. You've got to tell a story, and you've got to create characters that we care about. So that's like 50% of the equation. The other 50% of the equation is, when I pick up the controller, if I can't do it, I'm not going to play. It's too hard. And so I would pick up the controller and I would like try to move around. I have no idea where I am. I totally lose orientation. I try to move a character up, and let's say he's supposed to like push a lever. I can't even line him up. He walks into walls. I mean, I can't play the game.
Navigation,
yeah, navigation.
Navigation tends to be one of the plagues that's sort of in the industry right now. No one's really addressing the camera orientation problems, disorientation, motion sickness, you know, those issues. So we've addressed it heavily. We've invested a lot of time and effort into making that come to life in a way that feels more cinematic, still gives people complete control over the characters. You become more focused on characters and less focused on, like, oh, why is he sticking to this wall? You know, those little petty sorts of issues that shouldn't be in the way of the experience.
And how do you address those issues?
We created a system we call a smart camera system that uses a much more cinematic approach when you're navigating around. I mean, you have to see it played to understand it because it doesn't exist in the industry today. You know, we've created this, and we've also addressed something we call virtual idiot phenomena, which is, you know, in the majority of these games in the industry, you know, it's an industry state of being where these characters, they get stuck on walls. They can't find the little things they're supposed to do. They, you know, get confused here and there. They get hung up. You're trying to run, you're trying to do this, and cling, all this little clunkiness is in the way. We've created a smart character system where the characters are smart enough not to hit walls, go through doors smoothly, understand what they're supposed to be doing at different points in time, and yet you have complete control. And you don't even notice that we're doing these things because you have 100% control. But what you realize, what your experience is, you go, wow, this is just totally smooth. I totally get where I am. I'm not getting confused. I'm not getting motion sickness. I'm not getting camera disorientation. It's just happening the way it should.
Cool. Because that was in the earlier game. It's hard.
Yeah, it was too hard.
In the manual.
It was too hard.
But I didn't care.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool, but if you're going to get someone like me who does care, because I have like a little instruction sheet and I'm trying to figure out, let's see, this does this, and then to do this, it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, I mean, now, especially with the analog controller, I mean, a 3-year-old can pick up that analog controller and literally, you know, like control the character. Make that character go anywhere he wants, or someone like I can pick it up and make the character do what I want them to do. And it's really, what's really funny is, if you give the controller, the controller for our game, to people who don't play games, they get it. And they don't even know why they get it. And they go, yeah, so, I mean, like, I don't play games, so I don't see what the big deal is here. That's what it is. Then you get it. It's invisible. It's what you're used to. When you go to movies, you don't get a headache because the filmmakers know how to not give you a headache. And that's what we've done. We've incorporated, you know, those kinds of tricks, Hollywood tricks, so that the game player experiences what the game really should be about. And the other, of course, big thing is violence in video games. And that was a big, big concern of ours. Because the fact that these new platforms are coming out and everything looks better, and so what does it look? You know, you can kill someone and it's like, awesome, it really looks real. Now I can really make the blood look real. That was like, that's not so good. This is not what we're interested in. And so
the violence issue, our feeling was that the more realistic games become, it's almost frightening the level of the violence that we can achieve if we so choose. And the realism of how characters are dying, getting hit, or suffering pain, being tortured, whatever, is, you know, you're gonna see a lot of that in this coming year. A lot of it coming out of Japan that is extremely violent. I mean, I call it, you know, the murder game, because that's what's going on, and that's okay. But that's not what we want to do. So what we wanted to do is we go, look, there is something that's very fun about the shooting experience. There's something visceral about that experience. But how do we turn that on its head to give it more comedic value, to make it not dopey, not childish, but make it intellectually more intriguing, and yet without the gruesome gore aspects? And so what we did was we designed that the industrial forces of Oddworld, what they're doing is they're firing addictive consumer products at characters. So instead of the character dying when he gets hit 10 times, the 10th time a bottle of brew pops up off his head, his beer cans are bouncing off of him, and then when he gets hit, that brew will land in his mouth, go, he drinks it, now he's addicted, now you can get him to come work in your factory. If you're the native forces, your weapons are made of spirit, which is when it hits someone, when you're firing pure spirit at them, it instantly reincarnates them to their karmic sort of destiny. So if it was a character that worked in a meat processing plant and he gets hit with a spruce weapon, then he instantly turns into a pig. If it was a scientist who was experimenting on lab animals, he instantly gets turned into a rabbit. So we've been able to prolong the life of the characters in the world, and give them more like for instance, if it's addicted employees, the natives have been rounded up, being shot with addictive consumer products. Now they're working for factories. If you rescue them out of the factories, you got to take them to rehab before they'll work for you back in a native environment. So it prolongs the longevity and the cycle of the world.
Yeah, you say to yourself, wouldn't it be cool if I could, mirror the problems that we have on Earth in a way that you don't get on a soapbox and preach? Because no one's going to buy a game if they are being told what, this is our philosophy, or this is, they don't want to hear a message. And so if you can disguise what we're doing basically is consumerism versus mysticism. And if we can disguise it with comedy, and you can laugh and still get what's going on, that's the goal for us at least.
Essentially, it's the basis of what makes things art forms. We see the movies and it's loaded with subtext. We read a book, it's loaded with subtext. Even comics, But video games today have just been loaded with challenge for the most part. And I'm not including the children's class, which is I think is very interesting, in a lot of ways. But the front line, the big hits and all that, it's just been interested in challenge and violence. But the aspect of using it as a storytelling art form medium, which it's completely powerful to use for, really hasn't been being addressed by the industry. And that was one of the opportunities we saw. We go, look, this is going to be the most powerful medium of the 21st century. Hands down. It just absorbs that much consciousness out of people. And so let's play with this medium. And people appreciate when something's smart. That's how you get a fan base. That's what, we like shows and we go, man, that was really stupid writing. When we see a cheesy Hollywood big budget movie, Godzilla, something like that, and we just go, God, what a piece of garbage. When something's done well, the X-Files in its first 3 seasons or whatever, then we go, wow, man, they're talking about this, they're talking about that. It makes it more intriguing. It makes it more interesting. And that's what it should be about.
So what's going to happen in this? What's the big adventure?
What happens is, Abe reappears, of course. But this is really a story about Munch. So where Abe was the meat processing employee who found out the retirement plan was a lie, Munch is an animal testing victim. So he's an animal. He's called a gabbit. He's the last of his kind. He's the sole survivor of his species. And where is he? He's in a pharmaceutical research facility. And so in the beginning, you're breaking him out of the facility. And then his empathy is towards other creatures that are being trapped, that are being, whether it's a bear trap, a mouse trap, the lab rabbits or rats, that's where his empathy lies. So you're sort of hearing the perspective of the lab rabbit from his point of view. And he teams up with Abe, and together they have mutual interest. Munch's interest, ideally, is bringing back his species from the verge of extinction. No.
It's really...
Not.
That's where it's like, I don't eat red meat, but it's like, if someone said to you today, look, you have a choice. I'm going to give you 2 things. Here's some broccoli, and here's a Twinkie. Which one are you going to pick? We're all going to pick the Twinkie. Most of us are going to pick the Twinkie. And why? Because we're hostages of our taste buds. Like, we know what the right thing is to do. We know that if we eat the broccoli, we're going to fight off all these terrible diseases. We know that if we eat the Twinkie, bad things are going to happen. But, most of us just want to eat the stuff that's not nutritious.
Also the...
Twinkies have a shelf life of 8 years.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's it. So when it comes to us being vegetarians, no, we're still human beings that we look at that Twinkie with big starry eyes and go, oh God, do we have to eat the broccoli?
See, this is the dilemma of consumerism today. I don't have a problem with anyone eating meat, you know, and neither did Abe. The problem was that they're cutting down rainforests to grow cheaper meat so they can sell it in drive-thrus. You know, that's where the issues come in. It's like, you know, why is America importing meat that's funding the deforestation of our planet, that's burning the lungs away of all the geography around the equator? They're funding it to get cheaper burgers, you know, and so we can have it at a drive-thru and it's convenience and it gets sold to us with a happy face logo. Well, that's an issue that's in our society big time, not really at the front of the news because no one really wants to talk about it. However, people get it when it's loaded in content. We all get what's going on. But these things are presented to us through happy face logos and
I also think,
happy people.
It's like, I mean, I didn't know that. I didn't know that McDonald's was, like mowing down the rainforest to make a cheaper burger. So to me, it was like, you got to inform the public. I mean, it's not fair to say, to this family of four here who needs to feed their family, is there another way you can do it? Because did you know that this was happening? And I bet you 10 to 1, the family goes, I didn't know that. And I don't even get what the rainforest does,
Ultimately, Abe's goal at the end of the Oddworld Quintology is all about proper labeling. It's just like, he goes, I don't care what it is, but as long as people know what it is, and I believe the moral integrity of the people will be able to decide. Like today we're eating a large part of genetically altered food that the government has said we don't have to worry about, so you don't need to know. You can't tell if the soybeans you're eating have been genetically altered or not because they won't put it on the label. So, but we've seen them say nuclear power safe, we've seen them say tobacco safe, we've seen all the issues. But in the end, this is an art form, and what it really is just inspiring material to make richer stories. And if people get something from those stories, that's great. And if they're entertained, hey, that's fine too. Just like Star Wars. Some people got it on deeper levels, and some people enjoyed it on completely superficial levels. And that's all fine. It's not about being on a soapbox. It's about having richer material. And the more it deals with dilemmas that are troubling our own soul as a nation, as a planet, as a global people, then the closer it hits to home and the more people tend to relate to it and go, yeah, there's really something there. That's that's the essence of it. This is the game medium, and as soon as you forget that, you're dead. It's all about controls. It's all about character. And the thing that we're trying to bring to it is we're going, look, comedy is a critical element that's largely lacking in this industry, and we're going to inject it in. So it shouldn't be about, I'm getting there, challenge, I won. It should, hey, that's part of it. That's one component of it. But we don't care about that when we watch a movie. We want to laugh. We want to feel things from the heart. We want to, just the basic navigation of characters should crack you up, should be cute, should be adorable, should be repulsive. All of the emotional spectrum should take place in the interactive experience. And that's where it starts from. All of the subtext issues, which you're clever enough to ask on, those issues, that's the ocean that this story of a boat is floating on.
I mean, make no mistake, we want to sell games. The goal is we've got to sell games.
We're happy-gluckins, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody falls into one of those areas somewhere along the line. It's all on a continuum. I mean, nobody is, perfect. In a perfect world, it would be great if we all didn't do this and we didn't do, All we really want to do is just say, look, if you want to smoke cigarettes, do you know what you're doing? Do you understand? That's a really good question. I mean, I think everybody who makes games wants to make it on a platform that can do everything that they want to do, right? And so when we heard about the Sony platform that was basically going to be so much faster and so much more realistic and all these wonderful things, we went, well, of course, that's a platform we'd like to be on. And now we're grappling with the inherent problems that one has when they're trying to create work that looks really real, and you're working on a console that just really can't deliver the kind of reality we're looking for. So it's always tough. So right now, it's like, well, the Dolphin's coming out, the Xbox is coming out, we're just looking at everything. Sony's looking good, but a lot of the things now we're developing for it, a lot of the things we thought would be a hell of a lot easier, and they're not.
So, that means that more money goes to solving problems that hardware corporations should have solved, where our money should be going into the game experience. Now our money's going into solving hardware issues that, that are short-sighted.